Hello, and thank you for joining us to learn more about how you and your firm can benefit from the CFA Institute Investment Foundation Certificate. I'm Jeannie Wolf, CEO of CFA Society Boston. I'm joined today by Dan O'Connor, Director of Partnerships and Client Solutions Americas for CFA Institute. In this capacity, Dan works with key institutions and universities to promote CFA Institute's educational programs, initiatives, and policies. I've had the pleasure to work closely with Dan for close to a decade, in which we've developed close partnerships with local employers. And also Leah Lindauer, Director, Society Relations, Partnerships and Client Solutions at CFA Institute. Leah works closely with CFA societies in major financial markets to support strategic and operational objectives. She is a huge asset to our organization and members in Boston. In this webinar, we are going to provide an overview of investment foundations, followed by a moderated Q&A. We will open it up to any questions you may have towards the end, and we encourage you to use the Q&A function to submit your questions. I successfully passed the Investment Foundations exam in the very first cohort of candidates. In my role as CEO of CFA Society Boston, the curriculum was extremely valuable in my day-to-day job. The curriculum was recently updated to reflect the ever-changing profession. And in this webinar, we will cover the modules and success measures. I will now turn it over to my colleague and friend, Dan O'Connor.
Thank you, Jeannie, and welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time to join us today. Again, my name is Dan O'Connor. I'm a director here at CFA Institute on our Global Partnerships and Client Solutions team. Let me pull up the slide that we'll use. And by the way, we'll make this available for anybody who's attending afterwards. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick and bring that up. Okay. There we go. So we wanted to give you an overview today, obviously about the Investment Foundation Certificate, and there'll be a Q&A session led by Leah afterwards. But just a little bit of background about CFA Institute, and we'll share this presentation with you so you'll have these details. Hopefully most of you are familiar with the work that we do here, but just wanted to briefly just kind of cover our strategy and outcomes, obviously develop future professionals, develop member value, and build market integrity. We are a mission-based organization, just like CFA Society Boston, promoting ethics, education, and professional excellence. Our membership is global. So we have members across all three regions. And in the Americas, we have most of our members, but we actually have most of our candidates coming from the APAC region and representing over 160 local societies. So many of you will be familiar with the flagship program, if you will, the CFA charter, but we also offer the CIPM program, as well as the CFA certificate in ESG investing. And just recently, we launched a data science certificate as well, if you're interested in any of those. Jeannie, I'm going to turn it back to you if you just want to quickly chime in a little bit about the work that you do with CFA Society Boston, and then we'll dive into investment foundations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. So as Dan said, CFA Institute is the global credentialing body, and in that organization, there are 160 local societies. CFA Society Boston is one of those societies, and we are also the fifth largest of the global societies in the CFA Institute network. Similar to CFA Institute, our objectives, our strategic objectives are building a professional, building up the individual's professional credentials through education and training. We also are very committed to diversity and creating more societal representation in our profession to create better investor outcomes. And we also believe that the key to the local society is creating a culture and network for professionals to foster relationships and really grow their career through that network of peers. We have close to or over 6,000 members and probably over 2,000 plus candidates in our network. So we're growing and continuing to engage that group.
Great, thanks, Jeannie. So just wanted to cover today some background about the Investment Foundation Certificate, which we're very excited to now be offering. Some of you may be familiar with the origins of the certificate, which actually began about 10 years ago under the brand Claritas. So when we launched the certificate, we wanted to really bring a program that really bridged the gap, if you will, in terms of those in investment decision-making roles and for those who worked around them. So that there really seemed to be a wide need throughout the industry for a program to introduce such concepts. So thus we originally launched what was called the Claritas program. It went through a couple iterations over the next 8 or so years. We settled on the name Investment Foundations. We felt it was more representative of what the program entailed. And we actually took it offline last year to retool it and to improve the program and modularize it to make it even more relevant for today's learners. So really excited to be back in market with the Investment Foundations program. We've had great early success with many firms in the Boston area, as well as global firms in general. You're really excited to be talking about the program today with you all. So just an overview, really the goal of Investment Foundations is to deliver that overview of the essentials of finance, ethics, and investment roles, providing the clear understanding of the global investment industry, including terminology and concepts. As a result, hopefully the learner will confidently and skillfully be able to communicate with their peers and their investment management practitioners. It will help them develop critical thinking skills, ask the right questions, be more proactive in meetings with colleagues and clients. And it also serves as an on-ramp to the investment profession for those who are perhaps early in their career who are kind of deciding what they want to do within the investment industry. It will give you the fundamentals that you'll need to be successful. All throughout, as Jeannie mentioned, you'll learn ethical reasoning, just as you do with our other programs. You'll understand different roles and responsibilities and grasp the tools and concepts that are used along with the techniques that are used in the industry. So for those who might be familiar with Investment Foundations, the previous iteration, if you will, we did really aim to keep the best of the curriculum, which did offer a comprehensive understanding of the investment management industry. It's backed, of course, by CFA Institute and the resources that we have. And it's really designed for anyone who wants to enter or advance within the investment management profession. So we'll go through a variety of the roles that the program might be suitable for, and some of them may match your role, some of them may be different than where you particularly work. In terms of what we've done to retool the program, we've revised and updated the curriculum to meet the needs of a dynamic global industry. We've added new topics such as DEI, ESG, and fintech to the curriculum. And I think very exciting change that we made was that we modularized the structure. So learners are constantly engaged and motivated as they go throughout the computerized program. So in all, we hope that it will represent a best-in-class experience for the learner and a simplified process as well for them as they go through their assessments throughout the program. So here are a few examples of some of the roles that we feel might represent the target audience for Investment Foundations. So you will see everything from HR to operations represented. This is not an exhaustive list. These are just some of the different divisions and roles that we've found that firms have used the program for and have found value for. So, if you don't see your particular role on the list, don't fret. These are just, some of the roles that we've come across, through the years with the program. And on that note, the individuals that use the program, we feel that they could come from different backgrounds professionally in terms of their timeline as well. So everybody from somebody like Carla, who's early in her career, who really wants to be successful in her role. She's a recent graduate, and she'll use the program to become a thought leader, consult with her colleagues, and also be able to better communicate complex information about the investment industry to help her guide decisions. In the middle, you see Elijah, who is a few years on in his career. He has aspirations to, certainly, upskill his own professional development, but also to learn the vocabulary, to learn the fundamentals of investments in his role as a business analyst. He's recently promoted, so he wants to, learn the tools that help him be successful in his new role. And on the far right, you have someone actually in an HR function, Regina, who is a professional, 12 years onward in her career. So clearly she is looking to use the program to really be more in sync with her stakeholders, to really, have a deeper understanding of the investment knowledge and background fundamentals, if you will, that her peers perhaps use, that she supports. So just, wanted to give a few examples of the different personas that might pursue the program. On the next slide, you'll see many of the needs of the target audience. And, first and foremost, that basic understanding of the investment industry, I think is one of the greatest values that you'll get from the program. Those who go through the program will get an understanding of the different roles within the industry. It'll give them a foundational overview to what's the concepts and tools used within the industry, and of course the ethical considerations. Also, the ability to skillfully communicate with their peers and provide support to investment professionals within their firms. And that also goes with clients as well, for those in client-facing roles. And of course, the ability to think critically, ask the right questions, and enable innovation. One of the greatest examples I've heard through the years was somebody who came through the program previously said that in her town hall that her firm had, the CFO was giving his presentation, and she felt empowered to ask a question based on the results he was presenting. So I think that's really cool and interesting that somebody who perhaps in the past may not have felt it was their place to ask a question in that form, had that confidence to do so. So that's one of the greatest things that we hope learners take from the program. So here's just a brief overview of the syllabus. It's covered in 6 courses. So the learner will begin with the industry overview and structure, and then progress from there. So types and functioning of markets would follow second. And then it culminates in serving the greater good. Some of those concepts such as ESG and DEI I mentioned earlier are now covered in the serving the greater good section. So as you'll see, there are many different topics that are covered throughout these 6 courses. So as you go through each module, you'll get deeper into these topics. And the way that you'll progress is you will take assessments along the way. And then you'll have an end of course assessment after the end of each of these 6 courses, followed by a final assessment at the end of the program. In terms of the other benefits that you will experience, hopefully you'll feel more engaged with not only your peers, but also hopefully your clients. If you're in a client-facing role, you'll develop that foundational understanding of the industry. You'll feel more comfortable with these concepts along the way. And you'll have a better sense of your own individual role, and perhaps get ideas of other roles that may interest you within the industry. You'll be able to think critically and ask these questions in many different forums. So the way that the program works, as I said, it is 6 courses. Each course represents about 10 to 12 hours of learning. So you can take it on your own schedule. Once you register, you have 12 months to complete the program. So it is very flexible in terms of how it's delivered. So in all, we're looking at 60 to 90 hours, and that includes the final assessment that you would take at the end. It's self-paced. You'll set goals along the way, and thus far, we've had several thousand candidates go through the program in just 5 short months that have started the program. So, we're really excited about the early uptake that we've seen. And then in terms of the assessment, the assessments are very straightforward. If you go through at your own pace, you understand the materials, you'll do fine. No additional studying on top of proceeding through the courses. If you hit a stumbling point, you do have 3 attempts, up to 3 attempts on the end of module and the end of course assessments. And you have up to 2 attempts on the final assessment if you need that. So that's, I think many people find that reassuring if they want to go back and look up something where they initially stumbled on. So we use scenarios and case studies and really story-based learning throughout the program. So you'll see videos and other story-based learning media to present the concepts that you'll be learning. So again, the platform that we use is very intuitive. It's very user-friendly. You'll have the ability to ask questions of other learners, to participate in the feedback in the virtual environment. So a lot of great features there. So in terms of the interactive elements, you'll be able to scroll and dive deeper on the concepts as you're reading them. So here you're looking at, the asset slide, and you can dive deeper into what accounts receivable represents. And you'll be able to do this on many of the charts that you'll see throughout the program. So hopefully this visual active learning really helps reinforce the concepts as you're approaching them. So another way that we do with the visual learning is the structured learning to enable success. So we do use different graphics, different images to convey the topics and what we're trying to get across in terms of the learning outcome statements. So you'll see that throughout the program. So just a recap before we kind of dive in, which I think will be the most interesting part of the session in terms of the questions that Leah has put together. You'll have 12 months to complete the certificate. It should take about 60 to 90 hours to complete. You do need a 70% to proceed with the end of module, end of course, and of course the final assessment to earn the certificate. With that, I'm just going to leave Jeannie and I's email addresses up if you have any follow-up questions in particular to the program. And I'm going to stop sharing and turn it now over to my colleague Leah Lindauer to lead our discussion. Thank you.
Dan, Jeannie, thank you very much. I'm excited to have the opportunity to dig into this more. Starting off, I'd love to hear from both of you as to how investment foundations has been received by firms. Dan, starting with you, you've met with various firms across the U.S. What has their feedback been about the certificate?
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Leah. So, as I mentioned, the program in its early roots goes back almost 10 years now. So, we've had a lot of firms that have used the program for quite a long time. So, the program actually, until we revamped it, had over 45,000 folks that had earned the certificate. So, it was very known, very popular within the industry. So, for those who have been early adopters to the Reimagine program, it's been, very positive, the early feedback that we've gotten from firms. So we're only 5 months now since the relaunch, but we've had, several thousand candidates register so far, and many companies across the globe as well. So within just the Boston area, I know there's several firms that have already sent cohort groups through. So, that's one example of where firms are finding value is, creating these cohort groups. Perhaps some of them are early learners, some of them are different divisions within the firm. So they're using that as a way to promote, their professional development as part of a structured training. And we also offer ways to enhance that. So we offer what's called facilitation seminars to help guide them along the way. If they want to dive deeper on any of the courses or any of the modules in particular. That's been really exciting to see. And we every day we get new interest from different groups like that.
That's great. That's great. And Jeannie, I'd love to hear your perspective focusing on Boston. I know you've been out speaking with a number of firms. How are they seeing this as a benefit to their organization and employees?
Absolutely. I think, Leah, Dan touched on it from it's just a great way to educate and help those who may not be in investment decision-making roles really understand the sort of value proposition of a firm. But I think even more so in this post-pandemic world of hybrid work, you're not there in person together every day, hearing things and learning by sort of osmosis. And so this is just one more way firms have added to their quiver to help people learn when they don't have that opportunity, maybe the in-person casual water cooler conversations. And I think that's what's really been encouraging for the firms, is that they now have a way to engage that cohort of people who really would benefit from this program.
Yeah. And Jeannie, I want to kind of take a step back too, and I know Dan had mentioned DEI as a component to the curriculum, and certainly that is a priority of CFA Institutes and CFA Society Boston. And I'd like to just kind of dig into that more. And what are you seeing as opportunities for firms to further drive their own DEI efforts forward, whether it be employee engagement, more what you talked about?
Absolutely. I don't think it's a secret that Boston has been, really at the forefront leading the DEI efforts for the profession. We had many people as part of the DEI code development at CFA Institute. And, so this is, I think that we're an organization and a market that's very passionate about it. And I think the way firms are using it is to sort of, those people who haven't had exposure to finance investments through their education or upbringing, whatever it may be. This is a way for firms to say, we're investing in you. We're investing in these sort of non-traditional employees who, have a unique or different background, weren't finance majors, weren't in the investment club at school. And, I think that they're using that to say, we believe in you, we want to grow you. And, I've seen many firms use it for that purpose.
That's a really good point. And I think I want to kind of add on to that, if I may, as Boston being one of the leading drivers of the DEI code, DEI. CFA Society Boston recently partnered with UNCF Lighted Pathways. And I think it's an incredible story about how CFA Society Boston and investment management firms are really walking the walk when it comes to DEI. Can you share more about this partnership?
I absolutely can, and I light up when I talk about this. So what Leah mentioned is CFA Society Boston has partnered with the United Negro College Fund to bring a program called Lighted Pathways to investment management is the formal name of the program. And this was really spearheaded by the UNCF New England office, along with two very committed investment professionals in the Boston market, one of them being one of our board members and who was also a member of the DEI code committee. So, I think that not only are we just lucky to have those sort of people who are supportive and part of our market, but when they came to CFA Society Boston and with this opportunity to partner, it was, we jumped at it. Talk about a way to, really, as one of my colleagues says, put bums in seats. This is not just a pie in the sky plan. It's actually putting people in investment firms from, historically underrepresented people, from HBCUs. And, it has been phenomenal. So as part of this partnership this summer, there are 23 interns as part of this UNCF Lighted Pathways program working at 23 different firms in Boston this summer. And one of the discussions early on was, how do we give this group the tools if they have, different majors or backgrounds? How do we give them the tools to sort of, come in on day one and be ready to go? And that's when CFA Society Boston stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to offer, and it was at our cost. CFA Society Boston is paying for all 23 of those interns to go through the Investment Foundations program. And I can tell you the goodwill that has created with the investment firms in Boston is really unmatched. And with the student interns are so excited. I think that every single one of them has already signed up with their code, their voucher code, and is already, well into the studying and the modules of this program. So I think that, the sort of bums and seats combined with the educational opportunity is really, going to be impactful for changing the sort of the representation in investment management.
Jeannie, I really appreciate you sharing that. I think you hit it in terms of impact there. And I just can't wait to see, these individuals go through the program and whatnot. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Switching gears a little bit, but thinking about target audience, Dan, I want to go back to something you had mentioned in the presentation. Can you talk more about really who benefits? And Jeannie, you touched on this too, but who can benefit from this certificate? And does this create a level playing field in terms of that foundational knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I personally believe that investment foundations serves the upskilling needs of both employers and individuals. And it does so in a very reasonable and achievable format. I would add, I mean, you have 12 months to complete the program. It's, unlike perhaps some other programs, it's not terribly high stakes in terms of how you cover the program. You progress, you pass, you learn new concepts, you earn a certificate. It's very affordable, $350. So I think that fits within most budgets, whether it's individual or at the firm level. But really, overall, I think it's suitable for anyone working in or around investments within the industry. So that could be within an investment management firm itself, or it could be, perhaps for a sell side firm that is selling into the industry that wants to be able to have the additional knowledge to help them do that more successfully. So we've seen a variety of different firms, even IT firms that are selling into the industry, use the program successfully. So really, I think at the core is if you're on the buy side, you're working an investment manager, it will help you be more confident and more successful working alongside your investment decision makers at the firms, people that you're probably working with and talking to every day. And it will help you, certainly learn the vernacular of the industry and hopefully make you more effective in your daily role. And I think in terms of your point about creating that, level playing field, it promotes a consistent baseline of knowledge for individuals, regardless of what their academic background is, where they went to school, what they studied, or their professional background for that matter. So, there is no prerequisite for it. It really is an equalizer in that regard.
And I'm gonna add to that. I think Dan covered absolutely everything, but just I like to add this little anecdote. I have a college, rising sophomore in college, and at that age, not everybody knows what they want to do, what they're going to study, what might be interesting, and it's a very, what I think is a fair price for adding that extra knowledge and really gaining skills that make you stand out. So my rising sophomore is taking investment foundations this summer, in between what I hope is working a summer job. But I do think that there's there is a real benefit, and maybe a college sophomore takes the class and says, or the course, and says, you know what, that's not that interesting to me, I'm going to go in a different direction. Or they say, oh my gosh, I never knew investment management did all of this. It's not investment banking. I had that, sort of mixed up, and I'm really, this is what I want to do. And so I think it really, there's an opportunity at the sort of, financial literacy component of it at a younger age.
Jeannie, you raised a really good point, and I'd like to kind of go back to, I think CFA Institute's well known for the CFA program, but I'd love, Dan, maybe starting with you, key differences between investment foundations versus the CFA program.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, I think the key difference really is who the programs are geared for. Yeah. So investment foundations, as we discussed, provides the fundamentals of the industry, for those working in non-investment decision-making roles. Now, conversely, the CFA program is really ideal for those who either are currently working in investment decision-making or aspire to work in investment decision-making roles. That could be, at an asset management firm. It could be, as a research analyst. It could be, in wealth management. It could be in many, many different roles. And it's a longer journey, of course, for the CFA program. You're talking about 3 exam levels versus the 1, of course, with investment foundations. The hours of study, we typically say about 300 plus hours per level of the CFA program. So it is a very deep commitment. I think what's really great is you don't need to necessarily make that decision and say, that's it. I did investment foundations, that was my path that I chose. We've actually seen historically something like 7% or so of our investment foundation certificate holders go on to sit level 1 of the CFA program because they became that more interested in the industry and wanted to pursue the CFA program. So it's certainly not a this or that decision. That said, if somebody knows that they want to work on the investment decision-making side, we encourage those to go directly into the CFA program because their time would be probably best spent pursuing that early on. But both programs certainly serve important needs depending on one's role and what they aspire to do.
Yeah. Jeannie, anything you want to add onto that?
I think, you really certainly nailed that, Dan. I think that 60 to 90 hours versus 300, as Dan alluded to in the CFA program. I mean, for some people, that 300 hours it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
People, everybody, we all talk about having more hours in the day, and I need more hours in the day, and 300 hours for somebody is a lot, and 60 to 90 seems much more attainable and manageable, regardless of if you're, maybe want to find those 300 hours later on down the road. But to really gain a qualification or certification, I should call it, as you in a shorter amount of time is definitely beneficial.
Yeah. I have one more question for you both before I open it up to the audience for their questions, and putting you both on the spot, but I would like to call out that you both have earned the investment foundation certificate, albeit the previous version. What would be one or two takeaways, either personally or professionally, in terms of the benefits? Jeannie, let's start with you with that one.
Absolutely. I have been in my role at CFA Society Boston for 13 years. I do not come from the investment management profession. I don't have a background in it. I was not a finance major. So certainly it was a very good qualification to my, it qualified me to the people that I work for, the CFA charter holders, and where they said, this is fantastic. Somebody who's leading our organization on the staff side said, this is important to me and I want to know what's happening. And so, I think that the support I received from our board of directors, our volunteers, was immense. But I think also personally, I felt it was important. I wanted to be seen as a knowledgeable professional in the investment management industry, and so I feel confident, just like the persona Dan talked about, the person who felt confident asking a question of the CEO, and I now feel like I can have very intelligent conversations with speakers, volunteers, when I go to conferences, other CFA charter holders. It has made me a more confident and engaged professional.
Yeah, that's great. Dan, I'd love to hear from you also on this.
Yeah. So, I joined CFA Institute about 9 years ago, and I'll be honest, my manager at the time said, you should take Claritas, you're new to the organization, take this, as we then called it. But I was really quite impressed by how much relevant industry knowledge that the curriculum entailed. It was done so in a very straightforward manner, and continues to do so today, and how it was presented. And my background, so unlike Jeannie, I come from the industry, and I'd worked 17 years prior in the investment management side. So, I had high expectations, and I was, very, pleasantly, surprised by, all the various content that was represented within the curriculum, and, also, how it was presented. So, for me, it really kind of reinvigorated the passion to keep learning. I had done an MBA in finance, I'd done my Kaya charter, but I wasn't ready to hang up my cleats just yet. So, it represented, I think, a great knowledge of the industry for me, just, as a refresher, if you will, having been in, various roles for the prior 17 years. So, going back to those personas, always keep learning, always, look to upskill, no matter what you're doing. So personally, like just last year, just to keep my brain from going foggy, I did a certificate in ESG investing, which I found very informational and excellent in terms of covering really the ins and outs of the ESG industry. And, hopefully next, I'll tackle the data science certificate, because that's an area of interest for me as well. So, I think there's one message that I'd like to convey to people, is to always keep learning. Maybe this is kind of the start of your professional career, if you're looking at some foundations, but hopefully you'll keep that learning theme throughout your career.
Well, Dan, now I need to go take another certificate. I'm feeling a little bit inadequate. I took Claritas, and then they changed it out to investment foundations. So my certificate on the wall actually says investment foundations now, but I didn't do anything for that. And I want to add one more piece to that. As Dan and I both took we were the very first cohort of the Claritas program. And, the advances just in the interactivity and the modularization of the program, I think is so helpful. When I took it, I had a book, and I brought the book with me on the train, and I, read it at bed at night, and, I didn't have immediate feedback on how I was doing. And, so I think that advance in the sort of interactive technology piece is really key to sort of reinforcing the learning that's happening. And I do think that will be helpful. And I've thought about taking it again, just to, experience that piece of it.
Yeah. No, and Jeannie and Dan, I have to confess, after we've had a few conversations about investment foundations, and it actually inspired me in talking with both of you to sign up. So I'm going through the program now. So I think everything you both hit on, it resonates with me now as I'm going through it. So thank you. for sharing your
Oh,
experience.
that's amazing, Leah.
Yeah. I'm going to turn it over. I'd love the audience, any cute questions you have, please submit them through chat. I'm going to start with one around what is the ongoing time commitment throughout the 12 months of the program? Dan, you want to take this one? Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. No, thanks, Dave, for posing that question. So really, it depends which course you're undertaking. But as I said, there's 6 courses, so it's roughly 9 to 12 hours per course in terms of the commitment. So really, it is self-paced. So if you wanted to tackle, one course a month, I mean, you would really, have the ability to get through the program in 6 months. But really, I think the pace, would be, for if you take out that 12 months to its entirety, is, one course per every couple months. Depending on if your firm wants to utilize some of the slides that we provide as well for those that do cohort groups, we can make those available. So, really, it's up to the learner how they approach it. But, really, it's intended never to be onerous in terms of a burden on, one's schedule. As Jeannie noted, we all don't have the 300+ hours, to maybe look at one individual, level of the CFA program. But I think if you slice out that 60 to 90 hours over a 12-month period, it becomes, very flexible, very achievable.
Dan, kind of sticking with that, for firms that might be interested in having their employees go through the program, what are the next steps to really kick off the process, if you will?
Yeah, no, thanks. So if your firm is interested in the program and perhaps wants to send, a number of colleagues through, please feel free to have them reach out to me. I'm happy to get them started. What we do is with such firms, and Jeannie did this with the cohort at UNCF that she mentioned, is we provide vouchers for the firm. So the employee doesn't have to go out of pocket to purchase the registration themselves. The firm does that for them. They assign the voucher to the individual, so they're then able to use the voucher code once they register. So that's probably the easiest way as a firm to get involved with the program. The other way, of course, is if you're an individual or your firm just wants to reimburse you individually, you can just go onto our website, go to investment foundations, and register from there. So it's really at your preference.
Great. Dan, one question we received as a follow-on to that: are there scholarships available for the investment foundation certificate?
So to date, I haven't seen any scholarships that have been offered. I know we're considering various scholarships, here at CFA Institute. Great partners like CFA Society Boston, has provided us scholarships locally to cohort groups such as UNCF and others. I expect that will be the case with other societies and certainly CFA Institute ourselves in terms of identifying opportunities to partner on scholarships in the future. I know we have for the CFA program, we have university partners. Perhaps we'll do something similar to that.
Great.
For university students, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. Another question from Dave: can I expect to be conversant in investment and finance conversations with other seasoned professionals by the end of the course?
I'm going to selfishly say yes. And Jeannie, hopefully you'll agree with me. I think you are investing, time to learn the vernacular of the industry. I think that will, certainly come in handy with those conversations. If you're talking about somebody who perhaps is a CFA charter holder or portfolio manager, certainly there are concepts that are better trained within the CFA program to get a deeper knowledge of. For example, there's no mathematics, no calculations within the investment foundations program. Of course, there's plenty of those within the CFA program. So just wanted to set your expectations accordingly on something like that. But I think generally speaking, on a macro level, I think you could be very comfortable for sure.
I absolutely agree with that, Dan. I I don't come from the investment management background, as I mentioned earlier, and I feel so empowered to have conversations that I am completely comfortable with. And that's, 12 years on from when I first, or 10 years, whenever it was that I first took the Claritas exam. So I think that absolutely, if you ask me to do some calculations, I might get stuck a little. But I think, what I'll emphasize in, can you be conversant? The one place that you can be conversant, because it's part of investment foundations, is the ethics side of it. And that is such a core piece of the CFA exam, of the profession, and just understanding the sort of, ethical standards that are behind the people you work with, the firms that you work for, I think is super important, and you can participate in those types of conversations, and I think that is extremely helpful.
It's a really good point. Jeannie, kind of switching gears a little bit, and I know you had mentioned when you took the course, it was a paper book, that you were reading. Are there any materials that candidates need to purchase or think about outside of with this new refreshed version, I should say?
So once they sign up, all materials are provided to them through the online learning ecosystem, I guess you could call it. But what I wanted to add, because we haven't done this yet at CFA Society Boston, but back when we did Claritas, we actually did hold prep courses for it. So we had some of our CFA charter holder members review the curriculum, and then they held lunchtime courses over the course of 8 weeks, twice a week at lunch. We brought in some sandwiches, and we had that sort of cohort model of people talking about it. And I think that, there's an opportunity for us to do that as CFA Society Boston, if there are enough people in our market who are interested in doing something like that, where we have volunteer members doing what maybe I would call a lunch and learn, to really just reemphasize and review concepts, not really teach them, but maybe have open discussions on ensuring that people understand and grasp the concepts.
Gee, I appreciate you raising that, because another question from Dan was around programming resources available after completion to support certificate holders on an ongoing basis. So if anything else you want to add to that, but I think that's great in terms of opportunities for the society. And Dan, anything from CFA Institute perspective on other resources available post earning the certificate?
Yeah, no, I think I believe there's a LinkedIn group so there's a community that people have joined through that. I know, certainly within organizations, as Jeannie mentioned, particularly some of the larger earlier supporters, you'll have an opportunity to really join a cohort in those cases. And if they are doing teaching sessions around some of the topics that are covered, I think that's a great way to certainly engage with your colleagues. Sometimes you have a senior investment professional teach that topic using some of the slides that we provide, but I think more importantly, bringing it to life in terms of their own experience with that topic and how it applies, in the quote unquote real world within the firm. So I think that's where great value is added.
And I can tell you from just an example in Boston, the UNCF cohort, the Lighted Pathways interns, there's 23 of them. They're all living in a dorm together at Northeastern. We are so grateful for stepping up and hosting them this summer. but they have each other, and they're, I think, using some of their very limited downtime to talk about it, and because they it's a shared experience among all of them, it's much easier to engage in that, and so that's an example of how that that sort of learning, peer learning can work, and certainly it gives us the motivation here in Boston at CFA Society Boston to say we can do that for others, for other people who are going through that. So I think that there are definitely opportunities, as again, as Dan said, this just relaunched 5 months ago, so we're still trying to figure out what our role in this will be, beyond promoting it and providing information about it.
Yeah. And Jeannie, one final question on that, is CFA Society Boston does an incredible amount to support the industry members, candidates, students. Any suggestions for individuals that want to get more involved with the society, whether they're considering taking this certificate, CFA program, or just want to understand the industry better?
Gosh.
Not to put you on the spot there.
You did put me on the spot, and it's funny, I was reading some of the questions too,
Yeah.
so my mind wasn't quite on it. Could just repeat that again quickly, Leah?
Yeah, no, and I think it's just how, just all that CFA Society Boston does, not only for charter holders, but the industry, students, just suggestions on how to get more involved with the society.
Absolutely. So there are so many ways to get involved, and it's all on our website, cfaboston.org. But we have countless opportunities through coffee chats, through student membership, through candidate membership, through local membership, luncheon meetups, the webinars that we do. So there are so many ways for people who, may not feel that they, maybe they're not quite at the, they don't want to join yet, but there are different ways where we try to sort of meet people where they are comfortable meeting us. And once you're involved with CFA or CFA Society Boston, the beauty is we have all of these community groups, these online communities where we have candidate communities, we have DEI communities and ESG communities. And so once you're involved, there's ways to sort of, increase your connections to people who have a shared experience or shared interest through that. So, lots of information on our website. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And send an email. It looks like Dan and Leah both shared our email addresses, and it's in the presentation as well. And we have a staff here in Boston. There's 6 of us who stand at the ready to help people get more involved and engaged.
Thanks, Jeannie. And going back to LinkedIn, we have a question here, and Dan, this one I'm going to pitch to you. Does the certificate have any digital capabilities that will allow for LinkedIn profile integration?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. We do have a digital badge capability for basically all of our credentials at CFA Institute. That does include investment foundations. So for sure, once you've completed the program, you can claim your digital badge and go ahead and post it proudly on your LinkedIn profile. I've done that with my certificate, and Jeannie, you can update the Claritas and claim your investment foundations badge and post it on your
I have already done that.
So,
I just shared it for everybody.
Oh, there we go. Yes, I see it. Yeah.
So there's my investment foundation certificate badge, and I have it proudly there.
Excellent.
Great. I don't see any more questions in the chat, but do want to give folks another minute here, if any last questions, before I turn it over to Jeannie to close us off for this session. And I just want to thank everyone again for joining. And with that, Jeannie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Leah and Dan. Amazing job. I was telling Leah at the beginning that Leah is the best moderator I've ever done a panel with. So thank you, Leah, for being so prepared and having us so prepared and asking amazing questions and anticipating what people would want to hear. So much appreciated. And Dan, thank you for always being a partner to CFA Society Boston, especially as we are promoting and launching this sort of reimagined investment foundations. I want to thank Jamie Gallius on our staff at CFA Society Boston for her technical expertise in managing all of our events here at the Society. And thank you all who attended. I hope that this gave you some information. I hope it gave you the inspiration to register for investment foundations, or if you're here on behalf of your firm, to bring it back and really encourage people to get on board with this. So with that, we are going to sign off, but hopefully we'll see people as part of the program soon enough. Thanks so much and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.